Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Competence. We'll present material about some key concepts in linguistics and applied linguistics. Competence versus performance, synchronic versus diachronic, langue and parole, key figures in linguistics and applied linguistics, general discussion and evaluation. Prior to the material, I will introduce the members of this group. The first, I am Izzat Raihan as the moderator. The second is Agung Rama Pratama, and the last is Alisa Putri Setiawan. Well, let's start our presentation today. Some key concepts in linguistics and applied linguistics. Applied linguistics is a science related to language or the use of language. Applied linguistics is a concentration in language and literature majors such as translating, medical, forensics, and others. Applied linguistics is also called the theorized approach to practical experience in the language profession, especially but not exclusively, and those that are concerned with language learning and teaching. This relates to the problem, process, mechanism, and purpose of the language used. Like other applied disciplines, applied linguistics refers to a theory of related discipline that explores the professional experiences of initiators and who then become themselves illuminated by that experience. The two-way relationship between theory and practice is what we mean by the discipline of theorizing. Applied linguistics is also a theorized discipline that develops its own coherence.
Competence versus performance. Kamsky separates competence and performance. He describes competence as an ideal capacity that lies as a psychological or mental property or function, and performance as the actual production of speech. In short, competence involves knowing the language and performance involves doing something with the language. The difficulty with this construct is that it is very difficult to judge competence without assessing performance. The difference in competence and performance is of prime importance in linguistics. One of the main goals of linguistic research is to discover how a person develops language. Another way is to understand how language functions in the human brain. One of the difficulties in conducting this type of language research is that actual speech contains errors. Although performance errors can explain how language is understood and organized in the brain, the goal of language theory is not a description of what people actually say. Rather, it is to describe the cognitive mechanism by which humans can produce an infinite number of sentences, many of which they have never heard of, from a finite number of words and grammatical structures. Therefore, it is very important to differentiate between competence and performance. Synchronic versus diachronic. Synchronic linguistics is the study of a language in a certain period. Synchronic is also known as descriptive linguistics or general linguistics. Example, a synchronic study of language is a comparison of language of dialects, the comparison of various spoken difference of the same language spoken in several specific spatial areas and over the same time period. Synchronous display, see language is as if it is static and unchanging. Language is constantly developing. albeit slowly enough that people don't really notice it when it happens. Diachronic. Diachronic linguistics is the study of a language through different periods in history. Diachronic linguistics is one of the main temporal dimensions of language study identified by linguistics. The term diachronic and synchronic refer to the phases of language evolution and language status, respectively. The most obvious difference between synchronic and diachronic is that synchronic system and unchanging, whereas diachronic system is changing or developing.
Langue and Parole. Ferdinand de Saussure is an expert in distinguishing between language in its structural form and the spoken word. Linguistics studies communication patterns using auditory modes, but the sounds that are voiced in one language are structurally related to sounds in other language, especially language of the same language family. Langue. Language is the entire language system that precedes and makes speech possible. Singing is the basic unit of language. Language is a system that has a large number of elements in which meaning is created in the arrangement of the elements and conjugation relationship between these arranged elements. Parole. Parole is the use of concrete language, actual speech. This is an external manifestation of language. This is a system use, but not a system. Next, key figures in linguistics and applied linguistics. In the late 1970 and early 1980, Chomsky and others developed more solutions for linguistics using both a theoretical framework known as principles and parameters, which Chomsky introduced in lectures on government and binding, and elaborates on knowledge of language. That principle is linguistic universal, or structural filter that is common to all natural language. Hence, they are part of the child's original endowment. Parameters are also options that allow variation in the linguistic structure. The principal parameter approach assumes that these options are readily established after one has understood a small amount of linguistic data, a hypothesis which has been supported by empirical evidence. One of the proposed principles, for example, is that the structure of the phrase consists of a head, like a noun or verb, and a complement, which can be a phrase of any form. The order of heads and appendage, however, is not fixed. Language may have a head start structure, as in English verb phrases. Next, general discussion and evaluation. In the material, Group 10 has questioned the extent to which recent developments in the humanities and social science have influenced applied linguistics, with particular reference to various attitudes. We suggest that what we describe in this material, namely applied linguistics as a branch of progress, which is very developed. This is the conclusion of applied linguistic material. It can be concluded that this is an explanation for applied linguistics.
Well, guys, that is our group discussion. Thanks for the attention. Thank you.